Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Salvatore Bruno. Join me in discovering the mindset into fitness, nutrition and wellness, where I'll be answering your questions, interviewing the top names and leaders in the game, and of course, I'll be getting their stories on how they get motivated to become the best. You'll find it right here on Bruno Talks. Hello and welcome. So Bruno Talks is back on the road, and today I'm bringing you Bruno Talks from the not so sunny beach resort or beach town of Ramsgate. My guest today is known for his business style, his directness, and basically getting everything he wants. He is also known to be the CEO of the very fast and up and coming model, fitness, bikini, muscle model competition in Europe. He is the amazing Mr. Stewart Armstrong. Hello, Stewart.
Hello, thank you. I want you to introduce me every room I go into. That was awesome.
That was, that's only taken us about 85 cuts.
Yeah. First take.
Firstly, thank you so much for letting us come in and into your home and letting us allow you to interview you today. So
into my home when we've got a coronavirus outbreak.
Must.
People shouldn't be coming in your home.
That's very true. I mean, we did do the whole no handshakes as we came in, so that was all right, I guess. And you did screen us through that big plastic box thing.
Yeah. And we're sitting here with goggles on and paper suits.
Picture that, everyone. So today, obviously, I'm going to be talking about Pure Elite. We're going to talk about your business ethics and stuff like that. But before, I go into any of that, what I'd like to do is go right back.
Yep.
Right back to the beginning as your childhood. Where did it all begin for you? Your local lad and so on. So, question to you, where did it all begin?
I get the most part of my personality from my mum and my granddad. So my mum just basically told me I can do anything.
Yeah.
No matter what it is, I can do it.
That's good.
And I find it hard that other people don't think that way. Because you can do anything.
Yeah.
What can't you do?
It's that doubt in your mind, isn't it? If somebody sows that seed that there's doubt in there, then it's a very hard. And you were, so this is your mum.
Yeah. And
where were you born? Were you born?
Born in Margate.
Okay. Oh, so you're local gentleman through and through.
Yeah.
And from a very young age, because obviously you are very business orientated.
Yes.
That you're just not born that way, right? So what happened? Where did you go from being a kid to suddenly being the person that you grew up to be?
My granddad owned three businesses, but rolled into one.
Okay.
It was a firework factory, special effects.
Wow.
So James Bond, he did all them.
Epic.
Harry Potter.
Love all that.
Star Wars. Aliens.
And as a child, did you get to go to any of this, or is it just kind of the stories that you heard from your granddad?
Yeah, no, I didn't, unfortunately. That would have been nice. That would have been amazing, to be quite honest. But no, I didn't get the opportunity to do any of that. But it's just seeing somebody who created something from nothing.
Yeah.
That has a massive impact when you're young.
Yeah.
A huge impact. And
were you, for example, did you have, I would classify as like a normal upbringing?
Well, what's normal? It was normal to me, but I council estate.
Yep.
Single mum.
Okay.
For probably from the age of me being 2 till 7. I had a stepdad from 7.
Okay.
But to me that was normal.
Yeah.
So I sort of, it allowed me to sort of be grounded, I guess, because my grandfather was incredibly successful.
Okay.
We're talking he won the European Nobel Prize for Science.
Wow.
He was a counsellor. He used to lecture at universities. MI5 would contact him sometimes about bombs and things. Like within his industry, he was the top, as well as the fact he had, up until he died, he had done every single James Bond and all the other films that I sort of speak about. So you had that side. So you sort of think, oh, well, you could be some like rich little kid. My granddad wouldn't give you £5. He came from Yorkshire, self-made. You ain't getting a penny.
You can try.
Yeah, it's just not happening. It's well, I did this, you can do that, or you want £5, well then go clean my car.
Go and own it.
Yeah. So to me, it was completely normal. But the one thing that my mum always sort of pushed, there's no limitations in life. Yeah. There's literally, if you truly wanted to be an astronaut, you could be an astronaut. Yeah. You just gotta try to be an astronaut. Work hard to be an astronaut. And then that sort of never really left my mind, to be quite honest. And it's one of those things, and I talk about this quite a lot with Janine, my wife, because you can paint your life in so many different ways. Yeah. I can sit there and paint my life as I came from a council estate, we didn't have a lot of money, and we drank things like powdered milk, and like my mum was probably hiding from me how difficult that life was. But I look at it as I was completely blessed. My mum 100% loved me, did anything for me, went on a holiday every single year. I came from a council estate, which you're talking 35 years ago. Yeah. And I went on a plane every year.
Yeah, which is probably unheard of.
Yeah. I thought it was normal. And I remember talking to friends when I was, say, 12, 13. And they're like, oh, I've never been on a plane. And I'm like, I go on them every year. Like, that just seems...
I've still got friends now who haven't got a passport. I'm like,
that's
what?
Crazy.
What?
That is crazy.
But then I guess that's going down the route of your... You know, you have these people that got their glasses like always half empty, that kind of stuff. Or is it half full? You know, is that where that mentality of...
Yeah, so my mum would always be working. So she would work on the farms picking potatoes. She would roll fireworks at home for my granddad. I remember she used to solder like little, I don't know what I call it, electronics or whatever, together at home. So she always had some sort of home job. Yeah. Whilst being a single mum and looking after 3 kids.
Wow. So between your mum and your granddad, essentially you got 2 powerful kind of figures in your life. So even though you could look at it very negative, these 2 are very powerful just because of what you... And so do you feel that these 2 are the reason that you are very much the person you are today?
I think those 2, the third one, my dad gives me my cheeky, confident, outspoken...
Cheeky? You?
Yeah, a little bit. It's been known. Like sort of that type of the personality. But then I got a stepdad when I was 7. And he worked in an office. He was a quantity surveyor. Okay. And when I was 7, and I lived with him from 7 until 20. That type of mindset of seeing someone getting up, going to work, coming back late. Because one of the things that I say to people that work for me, you're paid to do a job. You're not paid until 5. Because he'd come home at 9, 10 o'clock at night. Yeah. Again, like when you're paid a salary, you're paid for the job. If you happen to be lucky and you finish a job at 3 o'clock, well then you can go home. Yeah. It's just rare.
And that's definitely not a normal outlook, because people will think, well, I'm getting paid a salary, but my hours are 9 to 5.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that is the wrong attitude. Massively the wrong attitude. Yeah. You don't succeed like that. Yeah. That's not a winner's mentality. No. Because you can... So I'm in the fitness industry now. You could put that into... It's the same sort of thought process of going to the gym. Yes. Of going, well, I've done all the sets and reps I wanted to do, but you might not have pushed yourself. Yeah. So carry on. Carry on until you have got to the limit. Carry on until you're finished. Yeah.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah, and so I do think that a lot of... Again, this is a very, very lucky thing that I say. Never do a job you don't like. That way you're not counting the clock down. You don't care if you're there till 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night. Yeah. And if you're in a job that you hate, you're constantly looking at the clock saying, I want to leave, I want to leave, I want to leave. So I get that I've been fortunate in the fact that I've never done I did one job I didn't like and I left.
I think everyone's done one job they hate.
But yeah, I've never ever had that situation on a Sunday night, dreading going to work. To me, Monday was the best day of the week.
Yeah.
It was another day for me to be awesome.
Yeah, that's a hell of a saying right there. I mean, so you've done this. You've got these 3 or 4 different kind of
four. I would say my mum being the most important.
And your mum being the most important.
Yeah.
And that carried you through school.
Yeah.
When did you know that business was kind of like going to be your forte?
When I was at school, so I would sell anything.
Okay. You're one of those.
Yeah. Well, I live on the coast.
Yep.
So back in when I was at school, so from 91 to 96, 97.
Okay.
Well, you didn't have the EU wasn't the way it was now.
Yeah.
So cigarettes were a lot cheaper in France, and France is only 28 miles away. So I just go to France and buy some cigarettes, and then bring them back and sell them.
Yeah.
And then that would involve I'd buy some clothes.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to cut this bit out. I'm sorry.
I don't care. Prove it.
Yeah,
it's in the past.
Yeah,
but those type of things, the opportunity to make some money from something, I've always looked at those things. I've always been, everyone starts dreaming.
Yeah,
I dream then do. So if I have an idea, I will just do it.
Yep.
So and that went all the way through my career. Test something, see if it works.
Yeah.
If it works, you could run something. If it doesn't, I've learned it doesn't work. So, yeah, I would say if you were meeting a 14-year-old Stewart, you probably would have guessed that was the way I was going to go.
Yeah, and definitely would have been sold something.
Probably.
And then, so what was your first kind of, should we say, real job?
So I did work experience when I was 14 in accountancy. Funnily enough, I did work experience for the ferry company that I used to use to go to France. So I did
bonus.
Yeah, I did 2 weeks work experience in that. And when I was coming to the end of my secondary school, I got a lot of opportunities. I was invited to do, I don't know why, I'm not very good at it, French, a play at the opening of the Channel Tunnel. I wrote a few articles, I know. I can barely remember, actually, I can't remember the song. Let's just leave it there.
Oh, yeah,
I can't.
I was going to ask you, do you remember the song?
No, I don't, unfortunately. I wrote a few articles for newspapers, and then like the work experience side and sort of looking how that was going. And then when I was 15, I can't remember if my mum put me forward or the school put me forward. Something happened, and Pfizer, who at the time was a massive employer here, offered me a apprenticeship in accountancy.
Okay.
So supposedly I was quite good at maths, and
yeah,
I would say I do like numbers.
And that would have been quite a big step, right?
Oh yeah, huge.
Yeah.
At 16, I finished my GCSEs, went straight from my GCSEs to summer school. So I didn't have that break.
Yep.
And then straight from summer school to Pfizer.
Yeah. So quite a big step.
Yeah. So I was that sort of young lad you see in a suit that's probably too big for him, going into the big wide world, walking into one of the largest companies ever.
Yeah.
To be honest, Pfizer. So I used to do Monday to Friday, and then 2 nights night school.
Wow. And the night school was for what?
AAT, so Association Accounting Technician, to be an accountant. And it was in this time that I realised I didn't want to be an accountant. And
wow.
Two reasons. One, counting other people's money didn't really sit. So I went straight into tax and treasury. Then after that, I was in payroll and expenses.
Okay.
And
that's
payroll
worse, right?
I was getting paid £50 a week. I made more money when I was a teenager, and I was just like, this. It's not for me.
Yeah.
So I left, and I never forget. So you used to have these little swipe cards. You had a swipe card for the canteen.
Yep.
It's quite futuristic when you actually think about what they did then.
Back then.
Yeah, so you didn't have cash. You charged a card up and you tap the card to buy your food. And this is 1998.
Yeah. Quite advanced for back then.
And like you're all tapping cards to get through doors and things. And I remember sitting in the office and I'm like, this isn't for me. So I took my cards off, put them on the table nicely and went home. And the next day the team leader called. My mum answered the phone and said, Stuart's not coming to work. And my mum's gone, he said he's not coming back. And of which they must have said, we can't do that. All I heard my mum go was, I'm afraid he is. His mind's made up.
And obviously your mum being the way she wasn't going to have any of it. So if you decided that,
the decision was made in my head. Like I couldn't be talked out of it. Again, even at that age, it's like I'm not going to do something I don't like doing.
Yeah.
And I assume my mum always believed that I would be successful. And if I worked out at 17 that job wasn't for me, well, I'm not even an adult.
It's very true.
I'm still a kid. So, I left that, and at the same sort of time, I became a dad.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm one of those statistics 17-year-old fathers.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
my mum said something very similar.
I bet it wasn't wow.
It wasn't.
So I take it wasn't as expected as you wanted it to be.
No, I obviously wasn't expecting to be a dad at a young age. I spent 3 years with his mother. And it's just one of those things you get together when you're 15, and then by the time you sort of get to 18, you're different people.
Of course.
Completely different people. But she's still the mother of my child.
Yeah.
And my son's awesome.
Yeah.
And again, it's one of those things, I look at things glass half full. How awesome was it when I was young, and I've got a young kid, I can engage better. Yeah. When he's talking about Pokemon, I'm like, I still watch that, so that's fine.
Yeah.
So that was different, but pretty cool.
And that must have been quite hard. I mean, that must have been a good few years where you've no longer you're not working now, and now you've got someone that you have to kind of look after and depend on, or someone has to depend on you. Yeah,
it's you don't. Sometimes you don't take a step back and think, and I wish I did at that time. I think the only times I ever really used to think about it is watching him sleep. Yeah. Because you're at that age and you're like, is this kid breathing? So you're just staring like, is this kid still alive and you're breathing?
Been there, know that feeling.
Yeah. But I also have to say that it was probably far harder for his mum because we split up. Yeah. So I think might have been 19 when we split up. And I can't imagine how difficult it must be to be a single mother. Yeah. Regardless of how much, or in today's age, I guess you'd say single parent, but single mother. And because at that moment, when we were together, I was an accountant on £50 a week. Yeah. A few years. I'm trying to remember the exact age. I don't know. I think I was 19, because it went from that, and within, say, 2 years from my life had completely changed. Yeah. I went from basically being a young dad on an apprentice earning £50 to working in sales, buying my own house, earning more money than my age, basically. Wow. And then that sort of started my career just took off, and work was my everything, basically. Wow.
So you've gone from essentially walking out of a job, having a child, and then essentially it completely like flipping the coin over, to then getting into another job where you're earning more money than most probably at that age. Yeah. And that was sales. That was something completely different.
Yeah.
Did you find that was just a natural place for you to be?
Natural ability. So the job, loads of my friends worked at this company. Yeah. And they said that when you come in to be interviewed, you walk down like the centre of like a call centre, and go to like the HR room to be interviewed. And I was like, oh, it's going for a laugh. This would be funny. So I went in there and saw all my friends and just like having a laugh and a joke sort of thing. And the job was for an inbound sales role, and it was 15,000.
Wow, big difference.
Yeah. I asked for 17.5, and
of course.
And I wanted. I said that I had a holiday already paid for. I didn't at the time. I said I had a holiday already paid for. Yeah. And would they give me the time off paid, but not out of my entitlement? Right. I didn't want the job. Right.
Wow. You went for it, didn't you?
Yeah. So I left, and they called me back straight away and offered me the job.
Wow. That's going for it.
Yeah.
And that, I take it, is something that was just naturally built into you. And I know a lot of people would probably look at that as being an arrogant kind of salesman. And I think there's a difference between being arrogant.
There is.
And I know, obviously I know you, so I know you that you're not arrogant. But people who are listening, they may think, well, that's just bloody arrogant.
Yeah.
But as the listeners will begin to hear as we talk more about into the business side of things, they'll realise that that's totally not arrogant. That's just your personality and knowing what you want and don't want.
Yeah.
And then so this point is, and then what happened from there then? How did you end up getting into the big companies?
Basically, I was a lot better than probably anyone even thought. I got promoted in the first month.
Wow.
From inbound to outbound. And then 6 months after that, I was promoted again. So now I'm getting to the point where I'm 21, and like my bonuses are like 5-6 grand sort of thing. And that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
And it was
some people wouldn't even earn that in a year.
Yeah. And it was all because I approached things differently. So with the outbound sales, you used to have, like in most telesales jobs, you'd have some sort of commission based on the number of sales, and then you'd have like a monthly target. So let's say your target was, 90 sales for the month, as an example. I stumbled up, so it was telecoms is what I was selling. And when I was working for this company, the reason why the company was there was the whole market got deregulated. So you had in 1997, BT had a monopoly. The government said, excuse me, the government said you can no longer have a monopoly. So all these other companies popped up, and they were allowed to be cheaper than BT, even though the infrastructure is owned by BT. So when I was looking at it, I was like, I get £5 a sale. Well, why can't I just get 100 sales in one? So everyone else would have like 100 leads. Well, I called Barclays Bank. So I tried doing a deal with them, and that was working for a while, with the idea being they have a lot of people that stay in hotels. Instead of them using the hotel phone, they can buy an account from us. So I was working on that, and I had somebody who just bought one account, who was a Jehovah's Witness who was working at the head office in London.
Yeah.
And I just got talking to him. And when I got talking to him, I realised that there were thousands and thousands and thousands of Jehovah's Witnesses that were coming into England to the head office to help them build their kingdom halls. So I arranged a meeting with the head office.
Wow.
Went up there, left with 300 accounts there and then. And then every week I would get another phone call. Going, here's another 300, here's 200, here's 500. Yeah, it was crazy. And then the Barclays deal was done. And I went from a model that was designed for someone to get 3 sales a day to I could literally come in, just sign off my sales, and then that's it. The job's done, basically.
Wow. And I actually remember that time really well, because I was, a lot of people may not know this, but I was an engineer for BT for 10 years. And then, so as we grew, there was a massive split between BT and Openreach and so on.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of in the BT when that kind of infrastructure all changed.
Yeah.
And a lot of people didn't realise that. So I kind of know about companies like you.
Yeah.
That would come along, and we would still do the line to a certain point, and then you guys would come in. So I know exactly about that. It's but going, without taking it away, that must have caused a little bit of tension in the office as well, right?
So in the office was based in Ramsgate, which was like a customer service office. So I ended up reporting into the team in London. So I was the only person, me and one other guy were the only ones that ended up reporting into London. And that way I learnt so much more about business because their attitude was completely different. The whole idea of, like I said, you work until the job's done. If you can do the job 5 hours early, congratulations, go home. If you're still there till midnight, you're there till midnight because you're paid to do the job.
Yeah.
And then at that young age, I then basically started to become a team leader and training people. And I then started to just get headhunted, which I know I'm very lucky at, that I very rarely had to look for jobs and apply for jobs sort of thing.
They came to you, right?
Yeah. And I stayed at that company for 3 years, and then I was headhunted for an Argentinian company, which, this is topical, it was about toilet roll. Bear in mind, everyone's going crazy for toilet roll at the moment.
Everybody wants toilet roll. Buy in bulk.
Yeah. So I was hired as their UK manager, the first person they hired in this country to build their whole operation.
Wow.
So that was a think on your feet thing.
Yeah.
Because then that came from, instead of me going, well, I know how to sell, it's like, well, imagine how good it would be if you had 5 people, but they all sold, say, 75% as good as me. Yeah. That makes far more sense than me doing it. Even if you get 10 people and they're all 20% as good as you. So I learned a lot from that, and I then got headhunted again. And this was the easiest way to explain it, they sell data.
Okay.
So they're a marketing company, but the emphasis then was data. So data used to be quite a big thing. It is big now, but social media does it for you.
Yeah.
So you could buy your, if you was an accountant and you want all the new startup businesses, you could buy that. And I remember I went in there and they gave me a 3-year plan. It was a small company, only like 6 salespeople, and they wanted £1 million profit on a 3-year plan.
That's a lot of money back then.
I did it in 6 months.
And then me sitting there going, well, that's a lot. That's a lot of money because we're talking back then. Wow.
And it's a small company, so if you've got 9-10 people working for a company, and that's a sort of profit margin.
Incredible.
That's a most people would love a company like that.
Yeah.
And again, like, probably for the first 10 years of my life, going back to being arrogant, a lot of people would label me with arrogant until they got to know me.
Yeah.
Because, to me, arrogance is confidence with no foundation.
Yep.
Whereas I could sit here now and say, you give me a sales target which is achievable, I will achieve it.
Yeah.
Right? Someone might go, well, that's arrogant, but then I can come back with I've never missed a sales target.
Yeah.
So therefore, I've got the evidence to back up my statement. Going back to the benefit of me doing accountancy and me supposedly being good with numbers, everything I started to do then was number based.
Yeah.
I would sit there and just work out the equations. So it would be, well, I know on average you get 2 sales a day, someone else gets 3 sales a day. Well, how many calls do we need to do? How many DMs do we need to do? Right, you normally talk for 7 minutes. Well, if I can reduce that down to 6 minutes. And it became so analytical that it then becomes something I really enjoy. I love reports. Excel is my favourite thing on the computer, which is nerdy.
That's so nerdy.
I love it. I spent
so much time on Excel, you know.
I spent 2 days. What day was it today? Saturday. So I spent Wednesday and Thursday building a report on Excel.
You listeners can't see this, but he's got a massive smile on his face.
Yeah, it gives you so much, and once you understand the data within any organisation, that is the key to growing.
Yeah.
Because that gives you the information, and it makes you realise what you're wasting time on and what is giving you benefit.
Yeah.
Basically, for instance, you could look at this. So when you get back and you upload this, and how many people listen to this compared to, say, listen to another one when you're at home, well, then you've got the data there to go, well, was the travel worthwhile?
Yeah.
And and eventually you could work out like a little grid going, well, if I travel 60 miles, it's still cost effective and gives me a benefit. If I go 61 miles, it doesn't seem to work out.
Yeah.
So that type of thing is literally what I would spend all day thinking about. I mean, all day, Saturday, Sunday.
Wow.
I would just be thinking of numbers.
Wow. And while this is I mean, how long were you at this company for? So did you stay this? You said 6 months. I mean, did you?
So the Argentinian company was 6 months, and I got headhunted again, and then the database company, I'm going to say it was about 18 months.
Okay.
Give or take, like a month either way, sort of thing. And then when I was working there, I met a customer who gave me an opportunity to help him with premium rate numbers.
Okay.
So
that was a big thing back then.
That was a huge thing.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I worked fully from home for myself, complete freedom. I'm 25 years of age.
Yeah.
And I was probably one of the luckiest people around, because I had my own house, my own car, single, was earning loads of money, working for myself, picking and choosing what I want to do, living by the beach. It's like a dream.
Yeah.
Basically. Healthy. Let's add that in, I guess.
Yeah.
Healthy. So I worked for myself for close to a year. And in fact, it was 14 months. And do you know what I'm thinking about? It might have even been 2 years. So I'm trying to think when I got my next job. And that was the time when I would say I earned real money. You work for BT, premium rate numbers were huge. Absolutely huge. And that then made me realise that if you put something in, which I did, so I owned a house, I sold my house, got all of my equity, and went all in on this idea, and it paid off. So then that then made me realise that if you're confident on something, and if you were working for someone else and you do it, you should do it with your own money as well.
Yeah.
And I think that tends to be the stumbling block for a lot of people, is because it's their money, that becomes a massive, massive risk. Like, what if this fails?
Yeah.
But if you had a job on 35 grand a year and you was working for a company and they was like, we want you to do this, this and this, and this is the budget for it, you go, yeah, it's fine, not a problem.
Yeah.
And even if you're off target, but you might have a day or two, you might be thinking, oh, it's not really working out, but you'd find a solution.
Yeah, totally agree.
Your money becomes the added pressure. But yeah, that really paid off.
And then from there, because I know that, and the listeners are going to understand where we're going with this, but they're going to understand in a bit. Because from this, you then go to, well, I think there's one more job before you end up going for this big company where you then had your massive kind of turn. But you essentially then go to a big company, you end up becoming, was it where you are head of 7 different departments, you are top of your game.
Yep.
You got, I mean, how many staff did you have working for you then?
So 66 was the full staff, but I had temps, so it fluctuated, but the average was about 66. But I employed, over the 5 years working there, easily 3,000. If someone said 5,000, I wouldn't be surprised, because we had like seasonal campaigns.
Yeah. And from there, because I know that you went from being self-employed, you went to this company.
Yep.
And then you had a massive shift.
Yeah.
And this is where the point why I'm so intrigued by your story, because at this present moment in time, people who are listening, who are business orientated, are going to be, wow, he's got everything that I kind of want as an entrepreneur, a businessman. They could be going down a similar journey. They could be literally everything you've done so far, they're looking for or they're trying to get to. And then you do the shift.
Yeah.
Now, before we do the whole shift bit, the one thing I want, anybody who is listening, that is kind of going down that similar route, is there anything that you would recommend to them when they go in for a job with a big company that is maybe a lot bigger than them or a lot bigger than what they should be doing? Or is it just better off just putting your own money in it or going self-employed? I mean, what would you recommend?
I do think there are benefits of working for somebody. And I think at the moment being like an entrepreneur or whatever is quite a trendy buzz thing to do.
Very, very trendy.
Whereas if you had a job working for Google on 120 grand a year, that's a great job. Mm-hmm. You could, to be honest, you could be working for McDonald's for 35 grand a year as a manager. Great job.
Yep.
You've got all of that security. If you're going to go down the corporate working for someone else, you've always got to be prepared to give time.
Yeah.
Because it takes time. I say to my son, so he works for EE at the moment.
Okay.
And it's like a relatively new job, and he's just working in like the shop selling phones. And I'm like, if you wanted to, in 15 years, you could be working in their corporate head office as a regional head of whatever department.
Yeah.
Because you just got to work hard.
Yeah.
There have been many people that I've employed that have had no qualifications. Most people I hire don't have degrees. I don't really agree with degrees in business. And they've gone on and built a career. So there's people that still work at the big company I worked at, LexisNexis.
Yeah.
They still work there. There's thousands that didn't realise the opportunity that was staring them in the face, because it would be, I'm only paid per hour.
Yeah.
It's bang on 5 o'clock on a Friday. I'm off. I need to go out with my friends and whatever. And those things are fine if you're happy with what you've got. If you're like, well, I want to be earning 30, 40, 50, 60, 100, 200,000. Those people don't get that by finishing work at 5.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing that I would say to someone working in their career is put in time, work hard. And most businesses would always look to promote from within first.
Yeah.
Always. If it's someone starting their own business, you need to do as much research as possible. Once you are 100% convinced it's going to work, go all in.
Yeah.
And don't listen to anybody.
I like the bit about them not listening to anyone.
Everybody told me purely it would fail apart from Janine. Everybody.
Wow.
I've got emails from sponsors that I contacted in 2013 who just replied back saying, no, this will never work. Who have then emailed me 3 or 4 years later. And I have replied back with their email on 2013.
See ya.
Yeah.
Wow. Because, I mean, that's great bit of advice. And I can imagine that you are the type of person that would have quite a bit of joy as well, being able to reply back to those people. Because, one, you didn't actually need that kind of belief from the beginning. If you, like you said, we're going to discuss about Pure Elite a bit more in a bit, but you knew what you wanted to do, and you went out and did it.
Yeah.
But going back, so now we're at Lexus, is it?
Yeah. So I worked in insurance before that, and then I moved to LexisNexis.
And that is 5 years, and literally you are top of your game. Yeah.
I never missed a target. When I first went there, the team was about 9 or 10. It's now 7 different departments if you include admin.
Yeah.
66 staff. You're as my mum would have said at the time when I said about me doing this is the dream job you want at 30. I'm 30 years of age, with a salary that people would love to have.
Yeah.
Living in Surrey, and probably if you would ask me 10 years before that, I would have been like, yes, I would love that as a career.
Yeah.
What an amazing job to have.
And I kind of know of what happens next. Mm-hmm. But the reason I'm going to not put any kind of details into it is because I want to really hear exactly the details of how it happened. But because this is the shift that basically takes you out of the corporate world and brings you into what you are today.
Yeah.
What happened?
So 2 things, really. The first major thing, I got ill.
Yeah.
And when I say ill, I got really ill.
Yeah.
So I used to go to meetings with like a cough syrup.
Yeah.
And being the head of department, I'd be the one either talking or I'd be expected to contribute. So if it's my department, clearly I'm leading all the meetings. And if I'm going to say like a head of departments, so my boss reporting to the CEO, you've obviously got to be talking. And it got to the point where I'd have to go, "Oh, give me a minute." Or when I walked into the room, I'd be like, "Just give me 5 minutes to get my breath back." Eventually, my boss, so I got promoted, and my boss was one below the CEO.
Yeah.
And she goes to me, "You don't sound well. You need to go and see someone."
But before that was said, you didn't think much
Well,
of
I
it?
just thought I was getting old. I was like, all I do is spend all my time in the office.
Yeah.
So when I was like 20, like as a teenager, I was an athlete, and it then got to a point where all I'm doing is sitting at a desk all day. So I walk to work, sit at a desk, and walk home. It's probably normal for me to be a little bit out of breath. So I just thought that it was just, I've just got weak lungs now, or I'm just unhealthy. Like next year I'll go to the gym and I'll be fit again, sort of thing. I sort of ignored her, but then HR called me to a meeting, and it's basically you're going to see someone. The company's got private insurance. You need to book to see someone. And I went to see someone, and at this time I had been dating Janine for weeks.
Yeah.
Literally just weeks. And the first thing is they give you x-rays. And so the very first thing I remember he said to me was, "We just need to rule out lung cancer."
Wow.
And I was like, okay. They did all these other things. Then it was like, your immune system's reacting in a strange way. So we need to check you for AIDS. So I had HIV and AIDS tests. Then they said they checked me for TB and cystic fibrosis and all this type of stuff. And they said, all that's negative. So we can't, and he's like, but we can't say it isn't cancer. We said, we don't think it is, but all your x-rays show that it may be. And this went on for a while.
I mean, these are some big nerve-wracking words that they're using.
30 years of age and you were being told that you might have lung cancer.
Yeah.
Like, well, no cancer is good, but...
No, of course.
but lung cancer is a nasty one.
Yeah.
And so this is going on. Parallel to that, my company is... So they didn't know the conversations I was having. And we got a new CEO, and his job was... he was someone who had a similar skill set as me, would come in to restructure things. And I remember having a conversation with someone saying about how much of a risk I am to the business, because they spent a long time trying to find me. And just like an off-the-cuff remark, if you got hit by a bus tomorrow, what would we do?
Yeah.
No one knows
what he does,
how you do it. I spent 3 days with... two people in like an operations meeting, and they tried to get the formula out of my head. And when I say formula, so when I work out formula with salespeople, you've got to take into account how many people might be late, so the calls might be down like 0.1%. What happens if there's a snow day, like if someone's sick, and what happens if no one gets any sales? Like all the variables you can think of that would impact a target. I could always answer like just like that. So I wanted to try and get as much information as possible. I remember after the few days, they just went, "It's impossible. Like you can't. There's too many variables to put into a computer."
Yeah.
So these conversations are going on, and then we're talking about redundancies. And I had the conversation about who I would deem as the most important person in my department. Up until this point, I've sacked thousands of people. One of my skill sets was managing people out of the business in a legal way, basically. Okay. Or if you like restructuring, or making sure like if you haven't hit your target, I'm the one that would sit down and look you straight in the face and go, "Unfortunately, you're just not doing your job very well."
Yeah.
When I was speaking about this person, it all just felt different to me, the conversation, because in my head I'm like, well, if you make her redundant, she get 40-50 grand.
Yeah.
And you want me to do what? I'm like, no, I refuse to do that.
Yeah.
So that made my mind shift a little bit, because it was like everybody is just a commodity. Not just the people that I think are rubbish, even the people that I think are good. Like, this person's an asset to your company. Like, even if I leave, if I die, this person's still a massive asset. They were there before I was. And then redundancy for me came up at the same time. And I had the illness going on, and
which you still didn't know what it was.
No.
So pressure must have been on you quite a bit.
Yeah, it was an interesting time in my life.
I bet.
I actually I'm not really someone that loses my temper. I do remember losing my temper with someone that worked for me, and it's one of those things that you wish, like in hindsight, you could apologise.
Yeah.
For because I remember she said something to me. It was something along the lines of, "Oh, you didn't congratulate me for some random thing. I don't know." And I just snapped and lost it. And I was in hospital for 5 days. You didn't even call me.
Yeah.
But then in my head, I'm like, well, why would she? Like, she works for you. She's not your mate. But it really.
But when stress kicks in, it's like.
Yeah. I've always been someone that put work first. So to me, work was my family.
Yeah.
That was everyone that worked for me. But I think where the skill that I've got can be sort of quite confusing. I've had best friends work for me and sacked them. Janine's worked for me and I've sacked her.
Bless her.
Twice.
I like that we'll just put that in brackets twice.
Yeah, twice.
Janine.
Because the right thing is the right thing.
Of course.
And the right thing for the business is the right thing. And that's not necessarily something that everybody can do. Now I'm lucky it's a skill set I need to be a judge.
Yeah.
Because I can sit down with someone that I like and then a week later go, you look rubbish and you're not placing.
Yeah.
So I've got this illness going on. I then got diagnosed with a condition called sarcoidosis.
Yeah.
So sarcoidosis is an autoimmune disease. It basically means my immune system turned on and didn't turn off. So what it did was it attacked my lungs, leaving me with cavities in both lungs and scarring. I have it on my face and like neck. You can sometimes sort of see I have like sort of looks like dry skin.
Yeah.
A bit like eczema, basically. So I worked from home for a bit, which again, how lucky am I? Like you can say on one hand that the company had no choice because no one else could do my job.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I spent months just working from home. I would ring in, I'd have telephone calls with people, I could see all the stats or whatever, and I was still managing the team. And then coming towards the end of that year, there's redundancy. Whether I took redundancy or it was given to me, I was made redundant.
Yeah, it was happening.
Yeah. Like you can try and argue it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I was made redundant, and I remember the December. So I'm on this medication, and this medication basically apparently makes you gain weight.
Okay.
So in December I gained weight, and it got to January, and I was like, well, I gained weight because all I ate was sweets. Like I would devour a tub of like quality street a day.
Wow.
Like,
are we talking like lots of weight?
For me, yeah, I wasn't like 20 stone.
Yeah.
But for me, if you looked at me, I looked bigger.
Yeah.
So I'm always quite a slight guy, in and around, say, between 68 to 74 kilograms is my sort of weight. And I was up at like 89.
Okay, so yeah, so it's a big difference.
Yeah, in a short period of time.
Definitely.
So I got ill, and then I saw that USN were doing a 12-week transformation, and I was like, I'm going to do that. So the 1st of January, went to the gym. I've got to say I'm lucky because I'm now redundant. So I'm well, lucky. But I'm redundant. And I'm like, well, 100%. I'm going all in on this. And the gym that I worked at, Tim Chase worked there.
Okay.
So I'm going to this gym. I did a 12-week transformation, and in my mind, it was an amazing transformation. I appeared in a few like local papers and on a few websites and
Nice.
like the British Lung Foundation to promote that you can be fit and healthy. My sort of mantra then was no little tablet can dictate how much weight I put on.
Good.
It's food.
Like that.
Like
Yeah.
it's just to me, it is just a cop out.
Yeah.
And when I finished my transformation, so I'm sitting there with abs, pretty healthy. I was like, well, what do I do now? Tim told me he was competing in a show, and he said that no one was going to watch him. And I didn't really know him, to be honest. Like I knew him to like, you know, when you see someone in the gym, like, oh, hello.
Yeah.
Like it was like that type of thing. You might have the odd conversation. So myself and Janine went to watch it, and that was 2013.
And prior to this, so just so because I'm just trying to make sure that I get this right as well. You still got this.
Yeah. There's no cure. I've still got it now.
You still got and so you still got this. You had no previous kind of fitness regime before. You'd never done anything like this before.
No. So I did study sports science at school at GCSE.
Yeah.
I was always into athletics. I
Yeah.
was always relatively sporty from like a hobby
Yeah.
point of view, but I was never a bodybuilder or anything like that.
So for Tim, for you to go and see Tim at this show, it was for you just a whole new thing. You'd never ever seen or anything done.
No.
Okay.
I'd only ever seen say IFBB.
Okay.
Like on TV.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. I'd never been to a show at all, and I'd never seen a fitness model show, and this was a fitness model show. And when I went and watched the show, there were a few things that I just didn't like or agree with, or thought that I could do better.
Okay.
And I'm sitting there with Janine going, well, I wouldn't treat them like this, or I wouldn't do that, or as we all do. Like, I'm sure people come to my show and say, I wouldn't do this, I wouldn't do that. And because there were various things that I do at my show.
There's always going to be someone who's going to have something to say.
And I kept going over it, and I was going over sort of like the business model and how you can make it successful. And Janine just looked at me and went, well, do it then.
I can actually imagine her saying that.
Yeah. We got in my car, drove home talking about it, and by the time I got home, the whole idea of Pure Elite was invented.
Wow. Do you know what? I was literally going to ask you how long it took.
Yeah, that was
a car journey.
Yeah, everything was done.
Wow.
We had a different name.
Oh, because I was going to ask you what why Pure Elite?
So firstly, because it was a domain name I could get. I went through. We're talking. It took longer to get a domain and to think of a name. And when you start thinking about the name, it isn't actually that important because let's be honest. If you sat in a room for a month, you'd never put the name Google.
No,
you just wouldn't.
No, 100%.
But now you would never think of it being anything different.
Yeah.
So there was that side, but the meanings behind them is pure, being healthy, natural, pure, and elite because you're better than everybody else.
Yeah.
So that's was
nice.
That's how I got to the two words. So like when you're doing like a brainstorm and you're writing everything down on a board, that's how Pure Elite came out. But I wish I remembered what the original name was. It was something physique. But yeah, so I bought the domain and then built the website, and then the day after I put the website live, I found out there's a window cleaning company in Essex called Pure Elite.
Oops.
Yeah, with a website. I don't know how I missed that. Which is why I guess mine was Pure-Elite because they've just got Pure Elite as well.
Yeah. Nice. And that's quite fun actually.
Yeah.
So you're not a window cleaning company.
No, we're not.
No. And Pure Elite has literally now it's European. Well,
Yes.
it's not. It's worldwide.
Well, yeah,
because you've got Australia.
Australia, yeah.
So it's gone. But before we start jumping to what it was, you're still a businessman through and through.
Yes.
You've never competed.
No.
Which
I see as a benefit.
Yeah, which also is very different to other federations.
Yeah.
So do you obviously see that as a benefit because because outsiders will see that you judge people, but you've never done competing before.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're competing, when you're judging, what do you look for when it comes to people competing at your show?
Yeah. So firstly, the criteria is written by me.
Yeah.
So each year it gets changed. So the first year it was just one type of criteria. Then each year it would evolve and change depending on what it is that I'm looking for. But I think one of the things that people forget about with fitness model, it isn't just physique.
Yeah.
So you've got the obvious things, like obviously I want to see symmetry.
Yes.
You want to see good body balance and everything's in proportion. Yeah, you want someone to be aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah.
I don't want someone that looks unhealthy. I don't like ribs popping or like bags under eyes, all those type of things. Because then you start looking at the model side. The whole concept of fitness model is the type of person that a brand would pay for a campaign.
Yeah.
Bodybuilding is the underground niche extreme. We all love to look at it. We all love to look at the guys and the girls and go, they are absolutely amazing. They're shredded. They're like 2% body fat for the guys, sort of thing. But it's unobtainable for the majority of people, and it's not on the mass market appealing to brands, which is why fitness models started. You've then also got what people neglect on stage is your stage presence and your posing. Like people massively underplay that. Because not only are you being judged by me, you've also got 1,000 spectators. It's a performance. It's entertainment. You tie that in with social media. If social media didn't exist, fitness model shows wouldn't exist.
Totally.
Because it's that type of thing. People want to be a social media influencer. Yeah. You want that type of potential profile. When it comes to say me not competing, the reason why I see it as a benefit, because I'm not going to say I know some of the promoters, so I'm not trying to be horrible towards them, but some promoters are ex-competitors. Yeah. And they started running shows because they can no longer compete. But you would never see me put my name on my show. You'd never see me put a picture of me on the back of my show. You would never see me on a flyer. Yeah. Why? Because it's about my customers. So I look at it from a business point of view. If someone's my customer, they're more important than I am. So I should put their name on something or their picture on something. Well, I don't want to promote me. Yeah. I'm a promoter. I should promote them. Yeah. You wouldn't see a boxing... Eddie Hearn seems to be everywhere. I was going to say, he's all over the place. He's everywhere, yeah, he is, yeah.
And this is where you've brought in your business skills, or your business sets, your skill set, and you've now made Pure Elite to what it is today. Mm-hmm. Now, if you could go back from where we stand like today, if you could go back in time and essentially, I don't know, just go back in time, is there anything that you would do differently?
No, but there is one thing that probably...
No.
No, I wouldn't, because everything I've learned from. There was a time when I got a second illness. Okay. So that was in 2015. So I'm really healthy. I've come back from the gym after training legs. I was actually on the phone to one of our sponsors. I get off the phone and I just feel something coming to my throat. And I go to the sink and it's just deep claret blood.
Oh my God.
So it ended up I've got a fungal infection in my lungs. So the medication I was on that makes you gain weight, supposedly. What it does is it turns your immune system down. So because you've got an overactive immune system, you have medication to dull it down. Because my immune system is dulled down and I've got cavities in a nice, warm, moist lung, fungus got in there and was growing. Wow. Basically. And we all know of fungal infections, but you don't necessarily think they're going to be sort of life-altering or...
No, definitely not.
Yeah, so I was really ill, to the point of I remember it was either February or March. It was definitely Friday the 13th, and I've gone to see one of the experts. So I found an expert who was up in Manchester, and I remember him looking at me going, "If this medication doesn't work, you've got a 50% chance of making it to the end of the year."
Oh my!
Yeah. I was by myself, and I had to get a train back from Manchester down here. Wow. Just thinking.
That's a kick
about that with this with a bag of medication. I took the medication and it didn't work. I basically had a fit, collapsed, woke up in an ambulance. So then there's like, there's one more medication we can try. Same thing happened. Collapsed, had a fit. So now I'm like, there's no medication. I've been told that it's basically going to kill me. I spent too much time on Google.
Which is the worst.
Yeah, when you first start...
Although it's probably one of those things where it's...
Now, it's a good thing. Because I've read so much literature, I can challenge people. And I can sit down with professors and have a conversation about different medications and different treatments and things, rather than just be palmed off, take this.
Yeah, but normally people go on there for a couple of times.
Yeah, when you first do it,
see the wrong things.
When I first Googled it and I looked at the mortality rate, it was not good for my mental health, to be quite honest. And because
that must have affected. I know you're talking about now mentally, but that must have put a lot of strain on your relationship, on just life in general.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people don't fully understand how much Janine gave up, because you've got to think there's somebody that I first started in a relationship with, I then get ill.
Yeah.
But then also at the same time as that, she gets in a relationship with a guy that's in London, got specific jobs, specific salary.
Yeah.
And I'm like, let's move to the coast.
It all goes downhill from there.
Yeah. And all that time it wasn't working. And I got to the point where I was skint. I mean, I've got pounds in my bank. I'm selling anything I can find. I sold my car and sold anything around the house that didn't need, sort of thing. Janine worked in a bar. She got another temp job working elsewhere. I actually set up another business, which I thought was going to be bigger, called Gym Food. I was going to be doing like prep food for people, until you realise how much hard work that is.
Yeah.
So you've got that. Then I start getting better. The business is taking off. Janine goes and gets what I class as like another proper job for her, sort of thing. And then the next minute, I'm coughing up blood, being put in hospital. I spent 33 days in hospital in 2015.
Wow.
And I asked Janine to quit her job and to run my business until I was better, not knowing if I'd ever be better. I got this third medication, and luckily for me, it worked. It took probably 18 months to get to the point where I felt good.
Wow. So even though you were taking this medication, you still didn't actually know if it was going to keep you alive.
Yeah, no. So even now, so I've had the second diagnosis. This is my 5th year.
Yeah. And
it's still a 50% survival rate for 3 to 5 years, and I'm in year 5. But I'm
you're definitely a fighter, aren't you?
Yeah.
Fair play.
It's a strange one because let's say 90% of the time I look completely healthy.
Yeah.
And you might have noticed when you first got here, I was a little bit out of breath.
Yes, I did.
And then I took that pump.
Yeah.
And it sort of calmed down. And then that type of breathing thing happens not as regularly, but it's sort of coming back because I've not been able to go to the gym for the last 8 weeks.
So when you're more active, is what better?
Yeah. Yeah, like I really try and push my body to exhaustion.
Yeah.
I have this little mantra in my head when I'm doing it, which is adapt or die. So I'm telling my body, you either got to adapt or you're going to die.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's also probably a little bit weird, but
well, the only thing is, if it's there's a lot. I know a lot of people that use different sorts of like motivation or aspects on their mindset of how to flick it over. And for me, I've always said, if you can, it doesn't matter what you use. If you can flick your mindset from negative to positive, whatever you use to do that, do it. You know, and I know that a lot of people use the gym as their release valve for stress, for illness, whatever. But if it physically makes you better, then it's a win-win. Yeah. And I naturally came into here today, because I've only met you a few times, but I know of the issues, and and I know that there is going to be moments where you're out of breath. To be honest, I never knew about the how bad it actually got. Yeah. And to think about it now, you're quite blasé about it, in the sense that you're quite open to talk about it. Yeah. Where some people, even 5 years down the line, they could be holding on to that, going, I'm not leaving the house. I
Yeah.
need to just stay in a little box somewhere and not live life. But you don't do that.
No, it took a lot of adjustment. So the mental adjustment was, it was the first time in my life there was a problem I couldn't solve, and no one else could solve it, which is...
That's really taking things out of your hands, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's a difficult thing to get to terms with when I'm a problem solver.
Yeah.
Even when you go back and I talk about sales, I'm looking at equations, how to solve this problem, how to get more sales. So that was took a lot to get used to, and then the adjustment to life. Like for instance, we're in this room now. Behind you, there's an air filter that filters air. There's one in every single room. I've probably got half the stock of alcohol to do your hands with, like hand sanitizer. All of those, I went organic. You can see that I've got water that's in glass bottles. I don't drink out of plastic bottles anymore. All these little things that I can control. And eventually, once I started to incorporate the things that I could control, and then the message from the doctors was more about how stable I was becoming. And I then started to be able to go to the gym, which was last year. I was able to go to the gym full time. That then gave me back a little bit of control. Yeah. And that's where it started to feel a little bit not as daunting. Is probably.
Did it feel like that you were taking the control back a little bit just by these little things that you put into place?
Yeah.
Did it mentally feel like that you were going back into because you spent the whole of your life being in charge of things?
Yeah. Yeah, and it does give me. So I'm not a book reader, but I'm a white paper reader. So even when I worked in business, I wouldn't read a book on selling, but I would read the statistics of what companies have done. Yeah. So I understand the information. I now do that with science and medicine to understand it. So if I read a medical paper about how in India and China they've been testing using thyme essential oil, and they use that to, instead of using an antifungal on food, they've been using that essential oil, and that stopped the growth of the fungus that I've got. Yeah. So I'm like, well, I'll start incorporating some of that in my food or in some water, and every little thing that I can read, which might give me 0.01% of a better chance, or it might be completely placebo, whatever it is. Like, I'm at a situation where 18 months ago I had oxygen at home.
Wow.
And it's rare you come off of oxygen once you're on it.
Yeah.
Very rare.
Wow. I mean, that's some pretty... Because, I mean, obviously, that's some real solid steps right there of... And for you obviously have to be aware now of certain things. It's part of your lifestyle. It's part of Janine's lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's because when you first got together, obviously we just met, and then obviously it got very serious. You were still just boyfriend and girlfriend there. Yeah. Because how long have you been married now?
So it'd be 2 years in September we've been married, but we've been together. This is our 10th year together.
Yeah. Oh wow! Oh, congratulations.
Yeah,
So now you've learned to kind of adapt to living the life as you have with Janine, and off the back of that, you have now. Well, I say now. I mean, Pure Elite is still going strong, but it's been going strong for a few years. Yeah, it's not new by any means. No. And even though you've got these where people would normally close a book and go, I can't do anything. You've continued with Janine to build this Pure Elite empire, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And it's going from strength to strength. And obviously we've got No One coming up in April. Yep. And so now, I mean, most people won't even bother dreaming or having a goal. But what's the next big thing for you?
So I want Pure Elite in every country. Okay. Basically. So I...
Wow, that's it.
I obviously do want world domination, but I'm not really money driven. I was money driven in my 20s. I'm 40 now, so my 30s and 40s. Pure Elite for me isn't about money. I've been offered jobs in, say, like when I was planning Pure Elite and the first year of Pure Elite, which pay me far more money than Pure Elite does. This is about building something.
Yeah.
And you know when you sometimes just get a bee in your bonnet? Pure Elite was my bee in the bonnet, basically. It was something really, really wound me up, which was this other show.
Yeah.
And it's not a negative to them because it isn't. I actually like the show.
No, you're just trying to make a point.
I'm just like, it can be different.
Yeah.
And things don't need to be that way. I think everybody knows, it's no secret that I try taking two specific federations to court for them stopping people being able to compete in other shows.
Yeah.
That's no secret at all.
No.
Because again, it's just a bee in my bonnet.
Of course.
So the next for Pure Elite, there is no end goal for it. To me, it's like an infinite thing. Hopefully it's...
And that's quite rare from a businessman not to have an end goal. Because normally, when it comes to business, the end goal is normally the value of what you need it to be. So you can straight away you can see that change in you of how you go. There is no end goal. I just want it to be this, or I want it to be that. So if we have no end goal, then in that case, then what have you got coming for? What's your plans for 2020?
So 2020, this has been an interesting year because
we like interesting.
I've had to change so many things this year. So we had a show in Miami. I've had to change that.
Can I ask why?
Yeah. So I had a contract with a venue in Miami, talking to them for months, agreeing everything. Everything's agreed. I'm just signing the contract and sending it back to you. And they come out, just before you sign it, we need you to get a off-duty armed police officer, was their wording, you have to pay him cash in hand for him to help you get the license, and then he will be at the venue. And I'm like, I'm not paying no one cash in hand. Because we all know those schemes, because then the day before you need to pay him cash in hand again. And then the day of the show, well, if you don't pay another grand, the show's not going ahead.
Sounds like money.
So I had to literally, this show was going to be my big show for this year, and I had to cancel that 3 weeks ago. At the same time of that, then obviously the coronavirus has erupted, which imports, from my point of view, even just getting tiaras.
Of course.
A lot of tiaras come obviously from Asia. So I managed to source the tiara. Basically, one of the companies I used, they happened to have 5. I need 5 tiaras. They had 5 tiaras in the UK, in a warehouse in the UK. So they come this week. The clothing that we sell, looking for different suppliers for that. All the other areas we was looking at, sort of having different shows in different countries. That sort of got to be put on.
Because I guess even your competitors. Because I noticed when I was in, was it September, wasn't it? Margate? Last one.
November.
Yeah. So I was very surprised actually how many people have travelled in to the UK to compete.
Yeah.
And I think that's obviously that must be affecting them.
Yeah, it's. I think sometimes, and we forget, and so I'm going to say we as in myself and Janine, but also the Pure Elite competitors.
Yeah.
We forget that there are 102 countries that compete at Pure Elite, and we just forget because it's in England.
Wow.
We forget that. It's just like, we're all just driving down from London or Manchester.
I moaned when I had to drive 2 hours.
Yeah. We've had people come from Australia and compete. We've had spectators flying from Hong Kong.
I sat next to her.
There you go.
Yeah. Amazing woman. She came to see her son compete. Yeah. And I told my mother half, Caroline's here, and I spoke to her when I was driving back. Amazing story that she had flown in that day to see her son compete. Yeah. And I was moaning half an hour before about how I've just driven about 2.5 hours to get here. And she went, little bit shorter than my trip. I was like, oh, oops. But yeah, amazing. That was incredible. Yeah,
and I think we just become a little bit blasé for it, because I actually think that for fitness models, at the moment, the UK is the centre of that. They're not really big shows in America, fitness models.
Yep.
Because of obviously IFBB you've got there, and their men's physique is quite a big category.
Yep.
There. I do think that Asia will grow for men's physique, and definitely India, because the type of physique that a lot of Indians look to grow is more the fitness model men's physique sort of style. But at the moment, I honestly think it's the centre for fitness model federations. So yeah, it's something that I sometimes need to take a step back and be like, I've actually got a picture on my an app on my phone that shows me all the countries where people come from. And every now and again, I look at it and go, oh yeah, it's not just a little show in Kent.
And does that make you? Because obviously, there's other stuff that you got going on in 2020. But does that make you? Is there certain countries that you want to hit first because of you've got competitors that come from that country, or have you just got a list that you want to hit for a particular reason?
So there's some that I want to do for because we have competitors and we get asked a lot. So America, we get contacted and asked via email, when are you going to do a show here?
Okay.
So that is something that will definitely be happening next year. So the Miami show's off. I found a new venue that don't want me to pay cash in hand to a police officer.
Perfect. That's always helpful.
Yeah, and there's about 3 or 4 states that I'm gonna go and do. But I do like the idea of India.
Yeah.
So that is something I'm researching a lot. But then obviously the first thing is there should be a show in every single country in Europe. Yeah. Because it's.
And there's plenty of countries in Europe.
Well, yeah, and I'm currently not allowed to fly because of my lungs, but I can drive anywhere in Europe. Plus, I like driving, so.
That's good because that's a lot of driving.
Yeah.
And that's good. And is there any anything you could tell us that's going to be happening in 2020, which will be like first said on here?
Yeah, I can.
Oh,
so
love it.
So the plan was when we was doing Miami. So Miami was my world championship.
Okay.
And then so the world championship is a pro show and an amateur show. So April is a pro and amateur, and what you came to last year in November was our world pro-am.
Yeah.
Pro and amateur. So I was going to move that to Miami, and then I was going to have a European pro-am, which we used to have in Estonia. I was going to bring that to England.
Oh, nice. Okay,
so I'd have the UK's in England, then the Worlds, and then the Euros. Because Miami's not happening, so I've not announced this. The European pro-am is now in Dublin on the 5th of September.
Amazing.
So it would be the first European pro-am that we've held in Dublin. It's the first pro show we're going to have in Dublin. And then the World Championship I'm going to do in High Wycombe.
Oh, nice.
So we've got our show on the 24th of October and the end of year ball on the 25th of October. So that venue was booked for the Europeans.
Nice.
And I've had it booked since last year.
Of course.
But I couldn't announce what I was going to use it for until I knew what happened in Miami.
Well, you heard it here first.
Yeah.
Amazing. And so off the back of that, all that's going on. So we've talked about your health.
Yeah.
We've talked about that you're still fighting it, still sitting here, still doing everything that you can. Pure Elite's like massive. What do you do now? Because obviously you've had this massive shift. You're definitely not the business, even though you are very much into business, but you're not that bit. You don't live for business like you did before. How do you enjoy life now out of business?
Yeah. So I basically, so up until about 6 months ago, I used to do consultancy.
Okay.
Now Purely is so full time for me. I don't charge anyone for consultancy, but I help anyone for free.
Oh.
So if
nice.
I've got a spare afternoon or someone wants a phone call or whatever, I get a lot out of that because I literally, as I said, I don't read books, I read data.
Yeah.
So I read what the algorithm is on Instagram. I'm not reading a book of someone telling me. I'm literally reading the data of what it does. And I read about social media and all that type of stuff. Anything that I can sort of share is something that I personally get enjoyment from because it allows me to go back into that corporate world where I'm studying data and helping people. The step back of that is, so I'm doing a restructure this year with Pure Elite. And like I said, the report I wrote the other day is to model Pure Elite now which I would say is like the third change of Pure Elite.
Yep.
You had when it started, when I got ill and Janine took over, and now this. The whole thing's been made far more corporate. The staff that I'm looking to employ to have far more of a corporate sort of feel to it, which plays to my strength.
So essentially, you are taking it up a notch.
Yeah, massively. Yeah.
Well, not even a notch, like a couple of 3-4 steps. You know, it's a big step.
Yeah. So some of the plans that I'm working on will massively benefit, say, like our pros and the type of things that we can offer to them. But the brand as a whole, because again, it's my full-time job.
Yeah.
Not all, but majority of other promoters, it might be a weekend job or a hobby.
Yeah.
They've got a full-time job. Purely is my job.
Yeah.
So I want to be able to offer my customers more.
Yeah. Which is it's nice. It sounds like everything that you've learned prior to you being ill, it sounds like you've now kind of done a turnaround, and now you begin to give it back.
Yeah.
And you've got the opportunity to give it back, which is amazing. And obviously making Pure Elite as good as it can, as good as it can be, is going to be great for people who come visit, to watch it, and people who compete in it. Now, I've competed. Carolina's here; she's competed. You've seen competitors, obviously, and I also see it from the other side of the coin, where I see it on the coaching side of you as a spectator. And I think anyone who's never been to one of these shows should definitely go just to see and watch it, because I think there was a couple of people that I went last year and I went to see, and I was quite amazed of how many people were there only to support their friends but had no idea about fitness.
Yeah.
And they were literally there just to come and support a mate from work, or it was their sister or their brother, but they don't do anything themselves. Yeah. But when moment they hit stage, they just erupted. Yeah. It was like a theatre show. It was like a new film had come out. It was something that they just went, oh my God, that is my sister, my brother, my work colleague, and they look absolutely amazing with the lights and all that. And I think this is where most of the people, when we're talking, obviously we've been discussing about people who know about this world. There's a lot of people who don't know about it.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great opportunity for spectators who want to come, or not even not sure about going. They should definitely just go and see it. And people who don't want to or have never competed should definitely try it.
Yeah, it's completely different to what people think it's about, to be quite honest. So my dad, who went to the first one, I don't think he thought he would enjoy it. He now comes to every single one. It blows him away. He's not a fitness person at all. He's just a normal guy. Yeah. He comes there, stands at the bar, has a few pints, and watches the show. Because now there are so many stories behind why someone's got fit, and you're sitting there and you're listening to someone suffer from depression, or someone has lost 4 stone, or all these different things, because we can all relate to that. That is easily relatable. Plus, it is a show. Yeah. And you've been to Pure Elite. There are specific tricks that I do to build up the atmosphere until the end. And you can leave that venue going, that was a long day. I was there for 10 hours, but I still feel fine. It's unbelievable the amount of energy that just comes from a room full of people. And
it really is a long day.
It is a long day, yeah.
And I'm not the one who's speaking.
I know.
Poor Lucy.
Yeah, I know.
But and I've seen it backstage. Yeah. I've seen it, and one thing I got to also take my hat off to you two, you and Janine, is that you're on it. She's running around like a headless chicken. And I don't think people also realise the amount of involvement it is to do one of these shows.
No.
It's one of those things where people, they do the prep or they're coming to spectate, and I think it's when they come to see the shows for the very first time, they realise how much involvement or what's been put into it to make it what it is. Yeah. They get to the event. I've never been to Margate before. Went into the venue, then it's all lit up. It's in this kind of, is it theatre? It's an old theatre, isn't it? Winter Garden.
Victorian Theatre. Yeah.
I went in there. It was amazing, and it literally is. It's entertainment from the moment you start.
Yeah.
Till it finishes. And even though everyone's tired, no one wants to speak at the end of the day.
No.
But it's really good. But how do you manage to keep it going and be better year on year?
because I go back to what I said earlier, it's not about me, is it? It's about the customers.
Right.
So that's just a normal sort of business thing. All of my customers need to be treated equally, and therefore that's the number one aim. You're always going to get someone that's unhappy, but if I get a complaint, that hurts. That hurts me, because I want everyone to be happy. There's nothing else linked to Pure Elite. I don't own another business that is coming off of it, or you do this. It's like it's literally, even though it's a business, it's me. It's my personality. If that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%.
It's my language that is used in all the marketing. It's my language on social media. Like I said, if any complaint comes in, that always gets passed up to me. So I think that how I potentially do it different is by putting every single person equally first as customers, allows for the atmosphere backstage to be electric, which then radiates on stage.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. And kind of two ways of looking at it now, or two messages, but for someone who wants to compete, why should they compete in your federation?
Well, I would say first, which as a salesperson, I wouldn't sell it to them. Come and watch it. The experience would sell it.
Yeah. That's very true.
I can sit here and say, I honestly believe we're the best federation. We treat you well. There's basically no favoritism. The judging's completely fair. I can go down all of this, right?
Yeah.
But Pure Elite was designed to treat everyone equally, and I think if you just come and watch, you literally just see that. And secondly, every single person that competes, I've never had someone say they regret it. They might.
That's true.
They might just want to compete once, and there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, come and watch, and I think you'll be hooked.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And for the people that just want to come and spectate, your next event is in the UK in April?
Yeah, so the next UK event is April the 18th, so the week after Easter.
So that's where you need to come down if you want to. You can buy tickets on Pure Elite's website.
Yep.
Come down, watch this amazing show. But for kind of another business / Pure Elite, but where can people find you?
My personal Instagram is probably the easiest, which is @Stewart Armstrong. That's probably the easiest way to get me.
Because I know that you're on all the different platforms. You're everywhere.
Yeah, so many. And because they're all on my phone as well, I've got all of the Pure Elite ones.
Yeah.
And my personal ones. But then now I've got, say, Pure Elite Ireland. I've got Pure Elite Estonia, Pure Elite Australia, Pure Elite Romania. I've got my personal YouTube channel. I've got the business. Honestly, notifications. It's just, it's fun.
And so I'm obviously going to add in all the links so you can message Stewart if you need on the business side of things. Any questions regarding Pure Elite, I'm sure that him and Janine will be helpful. But for us to kind of wrap things up, there's always like one question I'd really like to to get out there. But it's like your final message to the listeners.
So I've got something I used to always say to people that work for me. If work was going to be fun, it would be called fun and not work.
I love that. I'm so taking that. So we're gonna wrap that up. Stewart, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for letting me in your home, and I'm looking forward to Pure Elite in April. Cannot wait. And thank you so much. For now, listeners, that is it. Once again, Bruno Talks has now finished another epic interview with an epic guest. So until next time, thank you so much, and I'll speak to you all very soon. Take care. Goodbye.